Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now call the roll. Councilor Naomi Savage. Councilor Judith Garcia.
Present.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Here.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Here.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Here.
Councilor Calvin Brown. Councilor Damali Vidal. Councilor Melinda Vega. Absent. Councilor Yamar Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda here. Councilor Enio Lopez.
Here.
Okay. We have a public hearing portion of the meeting. This is for the CIP. Now, any member of the public that wishes to comment on the public improvement project proposed, you can communicate via email to citycouncil@chelseama.gov. Your name and address must be included. Any comments submitted must be submitted by Monday, June 8th, 2020, 12 p.m. That's next week. We now have communications from the city manager. The first communication is a financial request for Beecham Street project. It is a request for the city council approve of various financial orders in order to allow the city to proceed for the bidding of the Beecham Street reconstruction project. The city is receiving a $3 million grant from the Economic Development Agency of the U.S. Department of Commerce to assist with that. The balance will be responsibility of the city of Chelsea. That total cost will be $12.5 million. In the revised CIP, he acknowledges a general obligation of borrowing $6 million for this project. The remaining money is expected for roadways and drainage work. There's also a source of funding from the MWRA. That amount is a maximum borrowed of $1.6 million with only a repayment of $400,000, $407,500. There's a loan order that will be submitted later on from the new business. There's also another order that will be coming up in front of us for a transfer of funds from the Everett Ave Mass Works project. That will be needed to do some water and soil work from the retained earnings. That amount is $308,550. Again, that order is also being attached. We have second communication from the city manager regarding the COVID-19 local economic recovery program. Their councilors last week, the Assistant Planning Development Director Alex Crane forwarded you a proposed financial plan to support local businesses and assist them in recovering from the economic impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. A copy of the proposal is attached. There is an order under new business that will be introduced as an emergency order. We have several emails that were received by the city council. They were in regard to restaurant relief and outdoor seating. The names of the businesses and owners. We have those writing to support it is the Mariachi Foods Incorporated, operating El Porto, and the Mystic Mall by Joseph Carrero Jr. We have a communication supporting outdoor dining and restaurant support from the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce. We have an additional one from same template letter from Jose Duarte and Taylor Choquette from Tambo 22. We have an additional one from Taylor and Brian Cochran. We have an additional email asking for the same support from Marvin Posada from the Pasta Box and from Chow Pizza. Moving on to second readings.
Mr. President,
I'm sorry, we need to, in order to accept and file the communication. Councilor Robinson.
I move that all the communications that you read into the record be accepted and filed under suspension.
Seeing no objection. We'll go into second readings. The first order is introduced an order from our last meeting. In order, Robinson.
Mr. President, before we move on to a second reading, apology, do you hear an echo? Can you hear me, Mr. President? Okay, great. Before we move on to a second reading, I know that the policy is very strict on late communications, but given the circumstance of what is unraveling in our nation, we have two late resolutions sponsored by myself along with Councilor Vidot. Would you accept them?
Yes, that's correct, and they are late communications. We'll address them during the end of the meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
As I was stating, order introduced by Councilor Robinson regarding the appropriation of funds in the amount of $306,500 from free cash to reestablish a quiet zone in the city pursuant to regulations of the Federal Railroad Administration. Is there a motion?
We need a roll call vote on the acceptance, Mr. President.
This is a roll call for the funding for the consultant to reestablish a quiet zone in the city of Chelsea relative to train whistles. A yes vote will support the funding to hire the consultant. I will now call roll. Councilor Naomi Zabin.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vidot. Councilor Melinda Vega. Absent.
COVID-19 crisis.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Tonight, all
Yes.
address the link between health disparities and racial inequality.
Councilor Roy Reginald, yes. Councilor Enio Lopez.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have 9 in favor and 2 absent. We have an order introduced by Councilor Robinson regarding the CIP loan order.
Mr. President,
Yes.
the orders that relate to the CIP, being that we're going to be having a public hearing that will take up these orders at the next meeting on June 8th.
Okay.
If you might want to read what they are for the record.
So I have an order introduced by Council Robinson regarding the sum of $216,244. The representing the unexpended portion of $340,000. We have an order introduced by Council Robinson regarding the sum of $309,870, representing the School Stabilization Fund for the CIP 20. We have also an order by Council Robinson regarding the sum of $29,580, representing the canceled project appropriated to the Parking Department vehicle acquisition. And those are all the orders. We're going to take them up at the next city council meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So I have an order introduced by Councilor Robinson regarding the sum of $1,630,000 to be appropriated for the payment for the sewer cost of the William Street corridor project. What is the motion?
That also is related to the CIP, so we can move all CIP business over to next week.
Council Robinson asked that we move to a second reading the orders of 20F63, 20F64, which is the sum of $550,000. The order for regarding the sum of $308,550 to the Water and Sewer Enterprise for the William Street project, rather. And then an order introduced by Council Robinson regarding that $322,716, again for the Sewer Water Enterprise Funds for the Beecham Street, be also moved to a second reading.
Those are the resolutions.
I'm looking for my order. Copy of my order.
You put it in.
What are you doing? That's a late communication. Huh? Huh?
Okay. Thank you for your patience. We have an order, an emergency order based on COVID-19 public health emergency as described in the emergency preamble adopted by the City Council on April 6, 2020, that the Chelsea City Council authorizes the emergency appropriation of funds in the amount of $1,150,000 from free cash to the redevelopment fund number 3030, or such other fund as the city auditor deems most appropriate, for the purpose of funding a COVID-19 local economic recovery program for small businesses in Chelsea. An amount of $1 million will be dedicated for the loan or grant funding to Chelsea local businesses. The remaining amount of $150,000 will be used for both administrating the loan or fund program and provide lease negotiation technical and marketing assistance to the loan program participants. Is there a motion on the floor?
Can we take it to a second reading?
It's an emergency preamble, no.
We can't do that, right?
Councilor Robinson?
I'd asking for a roll call vote on the matter.
And
Okay.
can I speak on
Would you like to speak on the motion? Councilor Robinson, would you like to speak on the motion?
No, I'm fine with the order. If somebody else would like to speak on it, they can go right ahead.
Councilor Garcia?
Yes, thank you. I believe there is an amendment for this order, and if we can please present that. I'd like to speak on the overall project. I think that this pandemic has clearly caused a huge issue for many of our businesses, and many of our local businesses here are struggling. So the purpose of this project is for us to pick up where the CARES Act left our businesses struggling. We know that the CARES Act was able to provide a lot of assistance for businesses, but it came with a lot of strings attached. So we look forward to presenting a package that will stimulate the economy here in a way that does not involve too many strings, too many complications, and get it out there as urgently as possible. However, there are specific line items with this specific order, the way it is presented, that I do not agree with. And I will go ahead and explain this for the public who is watching. $900,000 are set to go directly to businesses to function as a grant program or a forgivable loan giver. Our local businesses without forcing them to pay us back, because clearly our local businesses do not have the capacity to acquire more debt. The other line item that includes this entire package is a $50,000 for an anti-displacement initiative to pay towards an attorney that can ensure that the businesses that are already here remain here. Another $100,000 are directly included for the running of the administration of this program, and another $100,000 are for the technical assistance and marketing aspect of this specific program, which I think is unnecessary. So I think that what we should be doing is shifting the $100,000 that is supposed to go for technical assistance and marketing, and let's shift that and give it to our businesses. Instead of offering our businesses only $900,000, we should be offering $1 million to help them directly. Those 100 to an organization to help with technical assistance and marketing could be benefiting 5 businesses that might not receive this help. So I'd rather have 5 businesses that could miss out on this opportunity be able to reap the benefits of this special grant. We know that there's too many businesses struggling. The $900,000 is not going to cover many of them. Let's add 5 more. Assistance and this marketing to our businesses directly. I feel that that initiative of having technical assistance and marketing is something that we can discuss in the long run, but not now. Right now, there's urgency to get this money out there for our businesses that are in dire need of operational funding, money for food, money to run their barbershops, money to run their retail businesses. So I am not supporting the order as is. I am only supporting the amendment that Council President Roy Avellaneda has presented to us.
Councilor Recupero?
Okay, I agree with my fellow councilor in some ways. Why are we wasting this money on consultant fees or whatever, lawyers, and to tell these businesses? Why don't we just give that money to the businesses? Can we just give it to them? They're the ones that need it the most. I'm sure if you went up to them and said, what would you rather go? To this person here consulting you how to spend your money, or give it direct to you? Let's take out the money and give it all to them. I'm in favor of that, giving all the money to the businesses. We don't need consultation fees.
Any other councilors like to speak?
Yeah, Mr. President,
Yes,
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Is this a loan or is it going to be a grant? If you can clear that up for me.
The specifics of the program have not been ruled, have not been made yet. It depends on a core business and probably on the amount. The writing that we have here is, it says loan or grant. So I think it's dependent upon the amount and the type of business. So there is, as part of this program, I've spoken to the city manager and he's agreed that to be on the committee on evaluating these applicants and to make up, not only address the criteria for what these businesses would be waived, we will have 2 city councilors on the committee. I have chosen Councilor Judith Garcia and Councilor Naomi Zabit to serve on the committee to work with Alex Train and the others who will be designated to go through the loan applications and also make sure that the information about these loans make their way through the community. To address the concerns, the original order was an open amount of $1,150,000. And the discretion of how that money was going to be at the suggestion of the Assistant Director, Alex Train. What a few of my colleagues are speaking about in particular were some line items that included close to $250,000 of, I would say, administrative overhead. In review of that, I have amended the order, and it now, instead of $250,000, which represents nearly 22%, 25% of the whole amount, it's now down to 150 total. I do agree that we have to provide some sort of lease advocacy, assistance, and expertise for those businesses so that they can get into, not only are we giving them money, but we want to make sure we're giving money to businesses that will be secure in their place. And many of them, while they can run a restaurant or a business, do not have the legal expertise to gain favorable lease terms, and we're going to assist, make sure that they get that, and they have someone in their corner arguing for that. The rest is the administration of the loan program. It goes to say, without further ado, that our planning department is now just too busy to handle a loan program to go out and administrate it. So we will have to find a third party. What we disagreed with in review, and I know that Councilor Robinson, you were part of the discussion, so was Judith Garcia, and I know Councilor Recupero mentioned, we were in disagreement about the amount that admin cost. Using some real world experience from what I have not only applied for loans, but I have assisted others with loans. I know that seemed a 20% overhead seemed way too high for industry norms, standards. And so we've reduced that. So we've taken an additional $100,000 and put that into the loan program. So if you look at the packet that was sent to you, instead of $900,000 going to businesses, it's going to be $1 million. And that's how the order now reads. It'll be $1 million worth of loans going out with $150,000 for the other programs we spoke about. If it comes to a point that the request for proposals are released and we do not have anyone to respond to them, then at that time, the city council will make an adjustment and maybe give out an additional funding. But for now, we want to put on a short lease and focus on helping businesses and less on overhead. So those are the comments that I'd like to make in addition and follow up to my colleagues. Councilor Lopez.
Yes, I will support the amendment, and I won't be supporting the original order. So thank you for doing that, and all my colleagues who are supporting this. The extra $100,000 should go to the business. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
President, I'm actually a little confused because in light of the amendments and also the unsurety of what we're really voting on here, I'm just wondering why when Councilor Recupero asked he was the first person to speak on this, and he asked for a second reading. Why couldn't it go to a second reading where we can actually iron these concerns out and find more out within the next week? I'm just wondering why he was not able to be recognized for his request for a second reading.
Because this is an emergency preamble order, not a traditional order.
What's the emergency behind it if we still have so much unfinished business on recognizing what exactly we want to do with it?
It's an emergency preamble because we're trying to get this loan money out to local businesses very quick because time is of essence. And the delay in having this fund out to the local businesses is could basically lead to closures. We're trying to get this help as soon as possible. An extra delay. The only thing that has changed here is not the amount of the money. The total amount of the funding that you saw in your packet from last week remains the same. The only thing that has changed is we have redirected $100,000 from overhead to actual loan funding to businesses. So instead of spending $250,000 on admin, we're only spending $150,000. So that's the only difference here. We are basically telling the local businesses, we're not going to put in $900,000 for local aid. We're going to put in $1 million. So
Mr. President, I appreciate that. I understand that. So we're saying that we no longer need to market or actually go out and try to figure out who's best going to be suitable for these requests and make sure that people are aware of them?
Correct. We're basically saying that the existing businesses know how to run their own businesses, that they don't need possibly a local consultant or someone from the chamber or the Chelsea Foundation to tell them how to market their company. What they need is some infuse of cash so they can hurry up and buy supplies, pay rent, pay employees.
But isn't that pretty much leaning towards one sector of the business community? Because there's still a business community out there that's unaware of this because we're not, as initially, marketing this to everyone.
Well, I think that the work of the loan program will be equal to what we did with the rental program. Enough of the marketing will be done through all of the avenues from the city, from not only the business organizations, but the councilors themselves. We're going to go out there like yourself. You can go out there and make sure that those who are hurting will get this help. And I think it's going to hit the businesses that were not traditional recipients of the SBA loans that did get some funding. This is going to be for those who did not get it. And I feel very confident that with the information that we have and the experience that the city council has in reaching out to our constituents, we'll be able to get this, and enough information was going to be done. I think specifically that we can use all the sorts of media, including local news, to make sure that our businesses are going to be aware of this program.
My last part of this question was, and this maybe the city manager can answer this question. What happened? What's the damage if we don't vote on this tonight?
It's just a timing issue. I mean, we're trying to get the money out the door as quickly as possible. Another week, I'm not sure it's going to make all that much difference, but this is up to the council. If it needs a super majority to pass tonight. If 4 councils are opposed to it, it goes to a second.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I think we should consider having a second reading. I would support that motion that was first brought. I have the floor. I would support that motion. It gives us an opportunity to really talk about this over the week, and Monday we'll be meeting again, and we can take this up Monday. Special.
Okay, I'll let the city council, my colleagues, vote on this. If 3 more councilors agree with Councilor Brown and want to delay this 1 week, they can do so. Otherwise, if you feel that we're ready to go, we'll just vote yes now. So I'll call the roll.
Mr. President, can you clarify the vote? So yes is to support the second meeting.
A yes vote would make this pass. A no vote would make this go to a second reading.
Okay, so a yes, it's in favor of the amendment.
It's introduced, the original, the order introduced was rewritten, so it was introduced with the amendment in mind, so it doesn't need an amendment.
Okay, so if we vote yes, we're in support of getting this money out immediately to our businesses.
That is correct.
Okay.
Councilor Taylor.
So let me just be clear on this. I basically support the amendment, but does that mean that I thought that the extra money that we're putting towards the businesses, just clarify that one more time, because I thought that that was going to come out of the costs that we're going to be given out for people originating the loans and things like that, that instead of 10%, you know, it's a lot less than that. So, but that didn't, what Councilor Brown was talking about was the advertising of the program, which I also have concerns about, because, you know, for the first round, what the chamber did, was only marketed to a certain segment of the business community. And I get your point about it's incumbent upon us to go out and contact businesses, which I have done, but I still think that we need to do our due diligence as far as making sure everybody is aware that this money is available, and that not because it becomes too much work for somebody to kind of administrate that. So I have some concerns about that. I don't know what the answer is, or if you do have an answer to what what's gonna go forward as far as communicating and marketing this to our entire business community, including the hospitality sector.
So as the order, the amount, as I stated earlier, the amount remains the same. We are sending $1,150,000 from free cash into this loan program. $150,000 will be used for administrating the loan program, provide lease negotiation assistance, and to provide technical and marketing assistance, but also to market this program. So I think $150,000 is a healthy amount to do marketing and administer this loan program.
If I could, Mr. President.
Sorry, Councilor Taylor, I did not hear you.
Sorry, if the city, I'll defer to the city manager if he wants to make a comment first.
I haven't spoken to Alex, but I feel that with the $150,000 set aside for marketing, technical assistance, lease support, we probably can make it work. That $150,000 is a healthy amount of money.
I agree. For me, it's that an extra $100,000 is going to be cut out of there, and as long as it's in it's in what we talked about as far as the loan originators and things like that. If that was too much money to begin with, that's fine. I'm for that. I just don't want that money to be deducted so that we don't kind of shortchange people that weren't already aware that the city was doing something on this first round of contact by the chamber. I know they did a great job in trying to, contact as many people as they could. It's not easy, especially with a lot of the businesses in Chelsea. But, I still feel like if we're going to do something like this, especially all out of free cash, that we have a duty to make sure that the entire business community is in on this deal, and not just the people who we usually go to with assistance, because I think everybody needs assistance here, not just kind of the usual folks that we're trying to help. And I think that there's especially in the hospitality sector, who has not gotten due assistance from either the feds or the state. So that's why I'm kind of concerned about this. Our folks in the restaurant business are dying, and we need to make sure that we help these guys.
I without having Alex here and having yet conferred with him, I guess I can't, precisely answer the question. I just do feel that with $150,000, we can probably come up with sufficient administrative support to make this a successful program.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I'll call the roll. A yes vote will adopt the measure. Councilor Naomi Savage.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown. Councilor Calvin Brown, can't hear you. Say? Yes?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
No.
Oh, no, okay. Councilor Damali Vidal. Absent. Councilor Belinda Vega, absent. Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy raising other votes, yes. Councilor Enio Lopez.
Yes.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in favor, 1 against, 2 absent.
Sufficient.
Okay, the measure passes. Moving on to public announcements. Councilor Robinson?
Yes. I'd like to take this opportunity to address my colleagues in the community. I'll start by saying we can't be silent. This has been happening far too long. I look back to 1968, presidential convention, there was uprising. 4 students killed at Kent State. MLK killed on my birthday. Robert Kennedy killed the day before my graduation. Vietnam War, just a lot of unrest. It seems like we are in for some darker days, regardless of status or income. There is an inherent awareness from Black men when dealing with law enforcement. Our hearts are filled with sadness, disgust, and overall frustration as we continue to process this tragic and senseless acts of violence towards yet another individual of the African American community. This is a very important time in our history, and images of this incident, as well as countless others, becoming a lasting image forever in our mind. This is not the first time that we have had to stand together in an attempt to impact change, but this could be the first time we actually do create change for all humanity. We have a responsibility as fathers, husbands, and leaders of young men to stand up and speak for those who no longer have a voice. During times like these, we have to work through our pain and work together to find a solution. Let's all do our part. Let's stop the violence and protest peacefully. And I'd like to thank you for allowing me to have this time to speak, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Councilor Brown? You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Mike, we can hear you now.
Okay, so this is a wake-up call, what we've been watching over the last few nights regarding the murder of Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis. And not only that, the previous murders down in Atlanta and New York, and the folks that have for the last 10, 20 years, and even going back, as Councilor Robertson stated, have been senseless murdered. I think we have a responsibility that we have to realize this is not just an image, but this is just a wake up. This is a wake up call for us to realize and engage in this image and see what's going on. And as elected officials and people of color, we need to be alert that these things do happen in communities across this United States, and we need to continue to have a dialogue. I think we need to have a stronger dialogue, not only with our state and federal government, but I think we also need to start forming, engaging dialogue in our local government, where these things will not happen in cities like Chelsea and surrounding. Because as we've seen, I mean, innocent lives with folks that's unarmed are being murdered by folks that we pay salaries to protect us and also provide service for us. And this is a call that we should all be alarmed by. We're at the age where we see it and we're probably like, okay, yeah, I know how to stay away from this. But let's think about our grandchildren. Let's think about our young children. They are living their lives where they feel that they can walk the streets, where they can come from a movie, they can come from school without having these things happen to us. As we saw in Atlanta, Georgia, also two college students, one was tased and the female was pulled out of her car just because they were African Americans, and both of those police officers were fired. Again, these are images that we see on the tail end of murders, of folks that's dying at the hand of police officers, and we need to be aware and alert and wake up and really start having dialogue in our communities and think about, hey, can this happen in Chelsea? If it can happen in Minnesota, if it can happen in Ferguson, Missouri, with Michael Brown, if it could happen in New York City with Eric Garner, it can happen in any other city in the United States. So we should be aware, and we should have some policies that we can stand with, that we will not tolerate this type of actions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Council Taylor.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilors Robinson and Brown have said. This situation, it was a horrific, end to this man's life, and I think that everyone is just upset about the whole thing. I want to make it clear that I agree with Councilor Brown that there needs to be a serious dialogue about the justice system and the use of excessive force in police departments across the country. So whether that means some sort of national training program for police so that there's a uniform kind of training program that police officers go through, or whatever that means, I would definitely be in favor of that, so we can address some of these core issues that seem to be coming up again and again. And, I've encouraged people within my own party to be aggressive in kind of addressing this situation, because it's not going to go away until we start addressing it. So, I hope that people can protest in a way that honors the victims and that we can see a difference between the real good people out there on the streets protesting and those who seem to come out after dark and start setting things on fire and you know, I think are engaged in deliberate acts of you know, deliberate acts of destruction. So that's the way I feel about it, and I think that we should really all come together. And one more thing is that I'm very proud of our police department here. I think we have one of the more progressive police departments as far as community policing, and we can look to them, I think, to have less problems than elsewhere. So I'm very proud of them, and I hope that other communities can emulate our police department.
Mr. President?
Councilor Vidal.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. Resolutions. I'm sorry I'm late. Just to confirm, we accepted both resolutions are before us?
No, we pushed it. We did not accept them, but we were allowing during the public, the public announcement period to make a statement. So the communications were late, were not accepted, but we are using the public announcement portion to speak on the subject matters that were attempted.
Oh, okay. So that, all right. So can I speak?
You may speak.
Okay, thank you. So just for the public to know, I submitted 2 late resolutions. One of them was for the Pride flag raising event that will be happening. Well, it's actually not a public event, but it's something that we've been doing for the past couple of years in memory and in honor of our LGBTQ community. And also I submitted another one, basically standing in solidarity with people across the country in light of the racial justice and systemic racism protests and conversations that are coming up out of the unfortunate death of George Floyd and so many others, Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Miller, and the list could go on and on. But I just wanted to make sure that I appreciate you allowing this conversation to happen, at least during the public announcements, for us to talk about and stand in solidarity with many of Americans across the country that are really just tired of the way that Black people and people of color have been treated. Unfortunate in these times of struggle, and we know the silver lining often is the way that we come together. And I'm seeing people of all races and cultures and religions realize that it's time for a much needed conversation, as I heard my colleague speak of from District 8, right, when I logged on. So I just want to thank folks for making the comments, and I want to be a part of those conversations. I have reached out to Joan Cromwell, president of the Chelsea Black community, to figure out how can we talk about this? How do we talk about this with our young people? I run a basketball league with a lot of kids that resemble the victims that are dying. My daughter, my nephew, they're Black, we're Black. And so we're scared. And so how do we have these conversations with our young people who know that when they go out into the real world that they pose a serious threat, unfortunately, because of the anti-Blackness that exists in many of our communities. So I want to thank you for creating the space for us to talk about this, and I am looking forward to future dialogue on this. And I also want to lift my LGBTQ community for the Pride flag raising that will be happening this Saturday at 11 a.m. It is not open to the public, clearly because of social distancing, but it will be live on Facebook, so look for that. Thank you.
Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a non-Black Latina, I stand with our Black community of Chelsea and our Black community in the U.S. and across our nation and across the world that are facing discrimination, brutality. For the past few months, Black people have not only witnessed their friends and family die at higher rates of coronavirus, but not only that, but they also have to witness how folks are being gunned down and shot and killed. They're also witnessing harassment and discrimination in public while they're just bird watching. And unfortunately, as we could see in these horrible images, one was mercilessly choked to death. Of the thousands of tragedies that have continued throughout this nation for decades. And I agree with my colleagues, there is dialogue that needs to happen, but we all have a role in this, whatever that is. Either that is calling and supporting, us. I know that I'm very proud to co-sponsor the resolution that I know Councilor Damalivito presented today. It was late, but unfortunately, these things happen, and it's important for us to take a stand and speak up and support our legislators that are at the federal level who are pushing legislation against police brutality. And I want to highlight the incredible work that Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is doing to fight for us in a peaceful manner and in a way that really introduces legislation that can have direct impact. So for those watching, I encourage you to really continue to participate in peaceful protests. Ayanna Pressley is pushing. I know that she's pushing to raise $50,000 for grassroots organizations that are on the ground doing this work. Whatever that is, either, talking to your children and ensuring that they know that, this sort of behavior and sentiment against our Black community and people of color is not right. We need to start having these live dialogues with the children at a very young age, but also continue the dialogue and continue to challenge our privilege, because we need to know, at least I know that as a non-Black Latina, I have a level of privilege, and I need to be able to continue to stand in solidarity with our Black community and let them know that we hear them, we're with you, and yeah, stay. I don't even know what else we can say, because circumstances are just so tragic. And I also like to add, on a side note, with Councilor Damalivito, we should also do coalition here in Chelsea, and I also look forward to supporting them. And
it's a tough.
And all those proceeds will go for all their initiatives here in Chelsea.
Anybody else?
Yeah, that was anyone me.
Yeah.
He raised his hand too. Well, let him talk.
Councilor Recupero, go ahead.
Well, I have two public announcements. One is,
Right now, we'll stick to this subject matter.
what is that?
The subject matter of what's going on, if you want a few words before I move on to the next one. Because that way you have something to say, particular to this stuff.
What is this? You're not having
We're just talking about the acts that are going on across the country.
Oh, that?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so if Councilor Recupero doesn't have anything to say, I wanted just to keep the, Councilor Lopez?
I just want to ask you a question. We received an email around 6:52 from Isabel Everwoods. Would you be able to read that letter today? The email?
I'll probably read it at the next meeting.
It's related to this matter.
Again, without being able to, our city secretary and clerk is here in the meeting, so we didn't receive it. Let me see if I can read it. Hold on.
Mr. President, I have it in front of me.
Let me see it, and then we usually don't read them live, but we'll try to make an exception here.
Who sent us the email? You sent it to us?
Usually anything has to be done before 12 o'clock, 4 p.m. on Monday, prior to, otherwise, so we have from, unfortunately, there's no address there. I will introduce it at the next city council meeting, but we need an address for all, anyone who sends an email to the city council. Bearing that, on this subject matter, I've kind of struggled myself to just figure out what role and how I should act on this. Not just as an individual, but as a city councilor and now as my role as city council president. Councilor Robinson started this conversation with a history of what he's gone through. And I too have kind of been reflective about what I've seen in my lifetime. My parents came here. When they arrived here, Boston was, again, full of racial strife. At the time, it was busing. Busing, the issue of segregation and busing was going on, and there were fights going on in the streets of Boston with kids who were trying to be bused to different neighborhoods, and there was all that fighting going on, and I think you all might have seen that iconic picture of a black individual being speared with an American flag in City Hall Plaza. I mean, it was crazy. I remember in the 80s, I remember Dee Brown, a basketball player for the Celtics, just being thrown to the ground in Wellesley because he was black in the wrong place. I remember the hysteria that was made in Mission Hill because someone wrongly accused that it was a black man who killed Pamela Smart, and Boston had to go through that ugliness. Charles Stewart, rather, it's just, and we watched the news, and it's Rodney King in the 90s, and it just seemed like it never ended. I got into politics because I always wanted to be a voice, more than anything else. I wanted to be a voice against bullies, quite frankly. That was the idea. You got in and you said, look, I want to be a voice for those who don't have a voice for themselves. And, Chelsea has a lot of those people, people that need a voice and stand up for them. And I always wanted to be that guy. And I just struggled to find out what I would do in this role. And two of my friends who are going through this, and I feel for you. And I think that, those who, the way a person that looks like me and has a little bit of privilege, I've lost friends because I've had some very rough conversations with people, who aren't black, who may, when black people are not around, say the worst kind of things. And you, at those times, have to have rough conversations. You know what? I don't want to be associated with you. And I guess how a person like myself has those conversations is, I think a lot of the change that's going to be needed here is, quite frankly, black people have been complaining about the injustice for far too long, and there are no changes. It's when people like myself get involved and say something to people that look like me, then all of a sudden it changes. And that's what I'm willing to do, is lose friends, lose relationships and whatever, in order to stand up against bullies. And it's systemic, and it's hard because we have friends who are police officers, but we have friends who are in a system that discriminates. And we need to stand up and voice our angst and voice our objection to what we see. We have to stand up for those who are being victimized and bullied. So it's really a tough time, but I'm willing to do the struggle. And I just wanted to say that to my friends out there. Anyway, I'll open it to other announcements. Councilor Recupero.
I have two announcements. One, I'll say it in Spanish too. The trash barrels that are outside, they're only meant for small things. Don't keep putting giant things inside of those barrels, because those barrels are not meant for house trash. They're just meant for regular trash. Yo no sé cómo explicarme, para lo digo más rápido. La gente cuando sale afuera y quiere botar basura, no lo ponen en el basurero negro. Eso es solo basura que uno come, copas, cosas pequeñas. en el basurero que está afuera. Gracias. And the next thing I want to say is, anybody that hasn't gotten their pipe removed from their house when they're doing construction work, from the street to your house, should have it done before they finish all the construction. Because once they finish the construction, I don't know, city manager, will they be able to still get it or not?
We won't leave a street without replacing the lead.
I'm saying if some of these people now didn't do it now and they're too late to be done, could it be done at another time?
We will try to replace whatever lead pipes we know about. So we'll figure out a way.
Okay. So the city manager said it too. If you forgot to get it done now, or you didn't get it done now, and you wish your house to get rid of the lead pipe that you had, you will call. What do they call DPW?
Correct. 311 line.
You call the 311 line and you tell them you have an issue with your lead pipe that you didn't remove it, and the city will try to help you. If you didn't do it yet, so whenever they do any type of street work and they're replacing sidewalks, you can always tell them in any street that if you have a lead pipe, to get it removed for free. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Can you hear me, Roy?
Now we can.
You can hear me. So I got an announcement. So for those folks that's waiting on their stimulus checks, or you're expecting a refund, I just want to bring this to your attention that we received this in the mail. It says enclosed is an economic impact payment card. It's a card like this here. Hopefully everyone can see it. A lot of folks have been throwing this card away. We received this about a week and a half ago. We've been on the Department of Treasury trying to find out if it was a legitimate card, if it was not a legitimate card. After about 4 days, we actually found out that this is a legitimate card. And a lot of people have, again, been discharging this card. And I just want to bring it to your attention. If you're waiting on a stimulus check, and if you get something in the mail from the Department of Treasury that does not say this is your stimulus check, but it actually is a debit card, please be aware that this is an official card. My wife and I, we activated this card today, and we found out that we both got what we're entitled to, which was $1,200 each. And it's a card that we should be aware of. And I hope a lot of the residents of Chelsea are aware of this, because there has been no marketing to state that, you'll no longer be receiving a check. Early on, a lot of folks received a check, but now they're sending out stimulus cards. So please be aware of this here, okay? Hopefully it helps someone that's watching, or someone that's had it and threw it away and still waiting on their stimulus check. There's some numbers you can call for. I'm sorry?
Nope, that's it. Is there any other announcements?
Yeah, I have one, Roy.
Yes.
If we can continue to put the word out that we need people to fill out the census. It's very important for this community that we do fill out the census and be able to get an accurate count as to how many people actually live here within our community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seeing no others, I'm now going to ask for the period of moment of silence. In addition to those who we lost this week from COVID-19, I want to mention a member of the Vega family, Hector Reyes Lopez. Most people know him as Judy. He was a young 25-year-old man. He leaves behind 2 children and a wife who was expecting. So it's really sad right now that this 25-year-old young man, is no longer with us. Thoughts and prayers are with his family. Melinda Vega, who could not attend tonight, it was her cousin. So I'm sure anyone wants to send any condolences to her, reach out to her and her family, feel free. But if there's anyone else, I see Councilor Brown.
Thank you. I want to special request for a moment of silence when we do it for a few folks. One was a dear friend, Mr. Floyd Porter. He lives at 5 Admirals Way. He passed away. His wife, Deborah, and her family, my prayers and thoughts are with you. Also, Mr. Ben Hankins, a World War II veteran who passed away. I'm sure you know him, Roy. He lives up on the hill, your area. He was a U.S. Navy vet. He passed away I believe he was 95. And also Joe, Stutto, as we know him, he was one of those young men that passed away. He was a Vietnam vet era, but he was also committed his life with working with our youth here in the city of Chelsea. I believe he spent over 30, 35 years with the youth sports team, and they have passed away. So my thoughts and prayers are with those families.
Councilor Vidal.
Thank you. I just want to have a moment of silence for George Floyd, since we were talking about him at length, and all victims of
Racial injustice.
Of racial injustice and systemic racism. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you all.
Hey, what do you mean, I'm sound?